Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness, your home for gains and brains. And we've got an interesting video to react to today. We've got legendary Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates, and it seems that my training is very similar to his, not only in terms of the intensity and the lower end of the volume, but also 4 days a week. Dorian is famous for going to the gym in that style, compared to most bodybuilders, especially very famous ones like Arnold, that went 6 days a week. Some even train every single day. And depending on the source that you read, you're going to see different exercises for Dorian's split. But I checked a number of sites and Dorian's own comments. This seems to be his overall split. Day 1, he did shoulders, triceps, and abs. Day 2, back and rear delts. So I suppose he only did side and front delts on day 1. Day 3, rest. Day 4, chest, biceps, and abs. Then rest on day 5. Day 6 is leg day, quads, hamstrings, and calves. And then day 7 is another rest. I am known on here for promoting 4-day upper-lower. What Dorian's doing is not that. It's somewhat close though. This is basically a modified bro split. I've had some people ask about this. My current split is upper-lower, upper-lower, upper. So I'm doing 5 days a week, but that 5th day, I call it like a touch-up day. It's more light stuff that you could really even do at home if you've got even a decent home gym. So that day is not very taxing at all. The other 4 are much more intensive, especially the lower body days. Those of you guys that have my programs know, those are not easy, but they will pay off. And if I'm not mistaken, Dorian is famous for training with a partner beyond failure, doing like assisted reps and big negatives and things like that. I do not do that myself. Well, one, I usually train alone, so I can't. But even if I could, that's not really my preference. I like to push most things to either about 1 rep in reserve if it's a heavy compound movement, or to a legit failure if it's something like a machine or an isolation. But I am never really going anything less than about 1 rep in reserve, unless it's a scenario in which I'm really trying to hammer down the form and focus on that more than pushing maximal weight or a deload, which is pretty rare at this point. But something I tell you guys all the time, in the gym, quality is more important than quantity. I still see so many people in the gym, they do so many sets. They go to this machine, 6-7 sets, and they just do this for hours. And you watch them do it. By the virtue of doing so many sets, they can't possibly be pushing themselves that hard, because if they were, you could not do that many sets. I mean, once you really get your form down, and you really learn to push yourself in terms of the intensity, you can grow more with 2 sets. Some people would even argue 1. I think late in Dorian's career, he was doing only 1 top set for everything, but even 2 sets for given exercises. You will grow more, I would say much more, doing 2 sets, high intensity, than doing even up to 6 sets with moderate intensity. Overall volume matters to an extent, of course, but doing more and more volume is not going to, on its face, build more and more muscle. A lot of people are handicapping their own progress because they simply fatigue themselves so much in the pursuit of an endless pump. So if you want a full scope view of how I program numerous splits, check out the programs available on my site, linked down below. It's not simply a list of exercises. I break down everything you need to make serious gains over the long term, and you can find tons of testimonials on my site and on my Instagram as well. But when it comes to training hard, and especially when you watch clips of Dorian back in the day, it is exhausting. And at some point, you're going to want a big swig of water. Over the course of a workout, especially now in the summertime, you're probably going to put down a lot of water. But did you know that your water is probably pretty contaminated? More and more people are catching on to this, but general tap water, especially depending on the area that you live, usually is full of a lot of things that you don't want. This map right here from the Environmental Working Group shows levels of PFAs, or forever chemicals, in tap water across the United States. You can see that in pretty much every major metropolitan area, especially in the very populated areas along the coasts. It is above the proposed limit pretty much everywhere. And as if using the water fountain at the gym wasn't gross enough, if you're drinking general tap water all the time, you could be exposed to a lot of the following: heavy metals, including lead and mercury, PFAs, PFOS, PFOA, and other forever chemicals, chemical contaminants that run off into the water supply, including pesticides, impurities like rust, sand, and sediments, and this doesn't even get onto the topic of fluoride. But if you want all of these things, these forever chemicals, these microplastics, these heavy metals, filtered out of your water, then I've got just the product for you. I've been using it myself lately, and it is excellent. It is the SimPure Y9A countertop reverse osmosis water filter. I'll show you some of the features in a second, but to start, let's actually put it to the test. I filled up the tank halfway with water from the tap and did a quick round of flushing. You can see the ppm of total dissolved solids is 519. I then dispensed the water into this glass, and I took the reading again, and you can see that it's down to 34. This is an over 93% reduction in the TDS in this water, simply from filtering through the Y9A. And on top of that too, in terms of the pH of the water, this filter also will make it slightly more alkaline as well. I'm sure you've heard of reverse osmosis filtration before, but you may be hesitant to go for it because it oftentimes involves a lot of installation. But this filter is excellent because you simply plug it in and it's good to go. There is no installation needed. It already comes with the filters included. All you have to do is fill up this reservoir, which is easily detachable from the side. It has a max capacity of 1.3 gallons. You put it back on, put on the lid, and click a button, and your water is being filtered. And despite the power of the Y9A, it still has a pretty small footprint. It is 16 inches long by 9.3 inches wide and 14.3 inches tall. It only weighs 18 pounds as well. So if you ever want to move it to a different room, or if you're moving in general, it's a complete breeze. It filters water at a rate of 300 GPD, resulting in 26 ounces per minute. It's seamless to dispense the water too. You don't have to hold on to any button, you simply press it, and it will fill up until you're ready for it to stop. Once you run out of filtered water, the machine will beep and display this on the screen, telling you to change it, and it is that simple. Whenever it's time to replace the filters, all you have to do is order the replacements. There are no tools necessary. If you like to stay hydrated and drink a lot of water, as I do, this is a no-brainer. So if you want to check out the SimPure Y9A, click the links in the description box down below on Amazon or the SimPure Life site, and enter code FITNESSY9 at checkout. This is going to give you up to 36% off of your order. So here is the video. It's called Top 10 Exercises That Will Make You Look Extremely Muscular. Well, let's hope so. And Dorian's here talking with a guy named Charlie Johnson.
If you could only do 10 exercises to train your entire body to build the best physique, what 10 exercises would you do?
Oh, 10 exercises. All right. Let's start with legs, yeah?
That's how you know somebody is a true lifter. Whether a bodybuilder, powerlifter, or anything like that, even a general athlete, they start with legs. Notice he didn't just say, okay, let's do arms first, bro.
Leg extensions and or squat, leg press.
Okay, it's interesting he said and or, because those are quite different exercises. So a leg extension, that's complete quad isolation. There's really no way to mimic it. Then a leg press, that is a compound, really quad-focused movement. Some adductor as well. The squats are going to hit the most muscles possible. The quads, as well as the glutes, and the core, the low back to some extent too.
Whatever. Barbell, Smith machine, squat machine, leg press, compound, pushing, yeah?
Right, as he just alluded to there, some compound movement. So, I would assume he would take both for the legs. I mean, that's similar to what I do right now. On my general lower body days, I will do pretty much a leg extension on both days, and then some type of either leg press or similar machine.
As I'm limited with exercises, let's leave it there for the legs because his hamstrings would be involved in that pressing movement.
To a small degree, sure, the hamstrings are going to be involved with the leg press. I'm sure you've seen on Instagram. Raise your legs up on the sled to really get your hamstrings. How much is that really going to hit your hamstrings? I think very, very minimally. Like, I wouldn't even count it myself. So I don't think you can just lump hamstrings in and assume that anything he mentioned, even if it is a squat, is going to cover it. I've even seen guys comment that, oh, squats are going to build up your hamstrings, bro. No, they're not.
There's two. Back. Well, if you could choose what you want, I would do Nautilus pullover and It's going to be a toss-up between a row and a pull-down.
So he mentions the pullover first for the lats, but he said the Nautilus machine. That is the key here. It's always debated what do they hit the most. Is it like the upper chest or the tricep or the lats? They really hit all of them. In my experience, I think the machine, like he mentioned, is by far the best way to do them. I've done all kinds of variations. I've done the dumbbell, the easy bar, the barbell, and the machine. You could also even do these on a cable system and either do like the standing version, which I think can be limited in its own ways. I think that's more of a lat-focused exercise the way most people do it. But in terms of the machine, I think it's untouchable because it just really puts everything into the exact planes of motion that you want. I don't really think of a pullover as a main lat exercise myself. You could use it, though, for that purpose. I think of it more so for the upper chest and the triceps, but in general, the pullover motion is essentially impossible to replicate. Like, there's nothing else really like it anywhere in the gym. And then we've got the row or the pull down. So that's really just vertical or horizontal pulling. Both of those are going to work your lats as well as your traps. Typically speaking, more horizontal rows are going to hit the traps more so than the lats. That said, depending on how you do your rows, you could hit the lats, I would argue, just as much, probably even more, than the traps. I'm sure you guys have seen over the past few years endless content about the so-called lat-biased row, and these guys drag benches over to the cable station, so those will definitely build your back. But realistically, I think there's no reason you should not be doing some type of row and some type of pull-down and or pull-up in your program. They're irreplaceable, really, for total back development.
Some kind of bench press movement and a fly movement. That's 6.
Okay, so very classic there. We have the two main ways to build the chest. When it comes to the bench press, I would assume he's going to say, like he mentioned earlier, it could be a machine, or a Smith, or barbells, dumbbells, whatever. You'll notice, at least I do, when it comes to legendary bodybuilders, even a lot of general athletes and people that are just successful in their given field, even if they just have good physique sort of recreationally, most people do not obsess over all of the so-called optimal stuff that you see just all over Instagram and TikTok now. I think what we really should call the so-called science-based lifters at this point is theory-based lifters. That's what it is. Their stuff is all theory at the end of the day. Like, you can point to all these papers and have all of these thought processes. I'm not even saying that they're wrong on some of them, but ultimately, in terms of like practicality and real-world results, we know what works. Oftentimes it's the basic boring stuff. And these guys now, as part of their marketing gimmick, it's their brand, they have to come up with a new variation of everything. As you guys recently saw with the Ryan Humiston video, that's all he does. And pretty much all of this is coming from people that have never won anything in bodybuilding or powerlifting. A lot of them simply don't look that good in general, especially the new crop of science-based kids. Many of them are still novices. Then you listen to a lot of successful people, guys like Dorian. I have an old video too reacting to Chris Bumstead's top 10 exercises. He named the power lifts and essentially filled out a template for starting strength with some extras.
We already done pressing, so laterals.
Dumbbell or cable?
Dumbbells.
Like I just mentioned, that flies in the face of everything that the so-called optimal crowd talks about. Dumbbells over cables, Dorian? Are you crazy, bro? This would get responses on Instagram. Like, they would make full 60, 90 second, even 2-minute responses. They would put up studies and anatomy charts and say, oh, but the dumbbell version doesn't have the optimal line of pull. And they would say it's not as stable or whatever they're going to come up with, right? I see people now on Instagram when they do a lateral raise with a cable, they will like put a tourniquet around their arm. I've seen some people do it on the upper arm too. And they have to adjust at the exact degree and angle to get the optimal leverage and muscle length for the fibers. And they have to go through this exact little range of motion. And they go through all this stuff. And then you see the results they get. It's like, is this really doing much for you?
More natural plane of movement.
Dorian is not up to date with the science. Sad.
7. Calf raises.
Calves, Dorian. I totally understand, but damn it.
Standing.
If you don't know, I'm sure he said standing because a standing calf raise hits all of the heads of the calf, whereas a seated one does not. That's as simply as I can put it. Most of you guys don't train legs that much, let alone calves. Just wear long socks or pants, you'll be fine.
Some kind of curl, take your pick. Concentration curl.
That was a favorite back in the day among a lot of the guys. The concentration curl is kind of like almost a hybrid of a typical curl, and I guess a preacher curl. Because with the general curl, your elbows are totally free. With the preacher, they're locked into the pad, or to some extent. That essentially eliminates any chance of momentum and kind of swaying with the weight. I get it from that vantage point. My biggest thing with the concentration curl is just the idea that staring at your bicep and talking softly to it, and you sing at R&B songs as you lift, or maybe you shout at it, and you get all motivational with it. People have this weird thing like if you stare and really focus, you can curl more or build bigger muscles. I don't think so.
Tricep push down.
Like on a cable push down?
Yeah.
That's another classic. That's one that Dorian had to put on a chain belt to do, because he was up to such a heavy weight with them. He could not stand still without some extra weight.
Because it's kind of like hit the whole tricep and it's fairly safe for the elbow and so on.
You might recall that, I don't think nowadays it's that big, but a few years ago, and even going back farther, it was always said to do some type of overhead tricep extension, because that hit the long head of the tricep, and nothing else could really do that. From what I've seen now from the science-based content, that apparently is not true, and I do not read the exercise science literature, really any of it, because frankly I just don't give a shit. But the new crop of the science-based side, we'll talk about this in a future video too. I call them like the biomechanics brigade, but you probably have seen this too, right? It's always a video of some guy in the gym. He's about to do a tricep press down with one arm, but then he turns his arm out to the side, like a little chicken wing motion. It allegedly hits the long head or something like that.
I really believe this, yeah, for the average person. If they did those 10 exercises twice a week, and each exercise, the last set was to failure, for the average person, that would be a brilliant routine.
That'd be a classic, like, 2 times a week full body. You could even argue 3. But for the general person that does not want to invest a bunch of time in the gym, they may not have the time even if they wanted to. 2 times a week, you could grow doing that. People think that it's impossible. You could say it's not optimal, perhaps. The science-based crew all talk about now too that, if you don't train every, 48 hours, your muscles start to atrophy. As far as I know, that is based on a study that had kind of very weak reasoning behind it and methodologies. I might have to actually read that one to see, but that just seems on its face wrong to me, like your muscles start atrophying that quickly. But a full body routine done 3, even down to 2 times a week, it is time tested more than you could argue anything else.
What's the number one thing I hear? Okay, people are lazy and they got excuses, but normally the excuse is, I don't have time. And I say to people, if you had 40 minutes, 45 minutes, twice a week.
Okay, I don't know if you could get that entire routine done in only 45 minutes. A full body routine, training intensely, with some rest between sets. I don't think that's feasible. Now that said, I know that a lot of you guys, you go to the gym 6, God forbid, 7 days a week, and you're there for 3 hours at a time, because you have nothing else to do, and you just love to be there and get a pump and look at the girls. I totally understand, bro. Also, you like to take pictures in the mirror with all your friends. I get it, dude. I do. But 1, you don't have to do that. And 2, you're probably holding yourself back. And 3, get a job.
Now you do 1, maybe 2 maximum warm-up sets on each exercise and 1 set to failure. So 2 or 3 sets on each exercise. You would cover your whole body. You wouldn't overtrain, and it would be enough stimulus to grow muscle mass. You wouldn't win bodybuilding contests because you need to do more. You know, we need to do hamstrings now, we need to do rear delt and so on. You need to do a bit more work. But for the average person, that would change their life.
He mentioned that the routine is lacking in the rear delts and the hamstrings. For the average person, they should be hitting those muscles. The average person has a slouched forward posture. The rotator cuffs are probably weak. They're probably anteriorly dominant. Their hamstrings are undoubtedly Swiss cheese. Their glutes are terrible. They've got pancake ass. I mean, guys, I can tell you Coming from a history of training the general public, I have trained so many people in my life from all different backgrounds. You see the same things over and over. People's posterior chains, from the top down, are a complete disaster. I mean, most people are walking around shaped like candy canes. And how does this often manifest? You've got low back pain, very, very common. If you want to improve that, you need stronger glutes. Stronger hamstrings are going to help too. Those also help with knee pain. Think about shoulder pain, rear delts, get your rotator cuff stronger, your teres major, your traps and lats in general. So I get Dorian's point here, but for the average person, you want to include those things. You need to include those things. Also, I just looked it up. It says Dorian is 63 years old. I'd say he looks pretty good for 63, and especially given his history with all the PEDs. I mean, once again, guys, right? Oh, every steroid user dies young. Well, we have an example right here proving that's not the case. I'd say he looks pretty darn good. I mean, really, Dorian looks younger than Mike Israetel, and Mike Israetel is 20 years younger than Dorian. Now that I mention it, do you guys want to see me react to Mike's reaction to Dorian? Because I've never seen it before.
Why do you think people overcomplicate this process? Because to you and me, this is so incredibly simple, but people are like have a meltdown about how simple that is.
Too much information and human nature to think more is better.
That is the catalyst and the driving force of all of the science-based content now. It's exactly that.
In this case, it's not. You need the stimulus and you need the recovery.
And the progressive overload, which I guess you could say that's part of the stimulus too. But you have those three things, the progressive overload, the intensity threshold met, and the recovery. Good.
I was Mr. Olympia, the best bodybuilder in the world, and it's my profession, and I didn't do anything else, yeah? I didn't have a job at that point. That was my job. It was my income. It was my passion. So I would have done whatever it takes to be the best that I was and to be number one. And I only trained for 4 hours a week with weights.
This is excellent, because this is just so foreign to so many people. I'm in the gym for more than an hour per session, oftentimes because of the rest, and I tend to lollygag too. I think we all do because of phones now. It's too easy to get distracted between sets. That said, even assume you take, say, about up to 2 hours per workout, 4 times a week. That's 8 hours a week. A lot of people are in the gym upwards of 20 hours or more every single week.
So if you're not trying to be Mr. Olympia, surely you can do less than that, yeah? You know, sarcopenia, which is loss of muscle mass as you age. If you're like 50 years old, 55, 60, whatever, if you could build your muscle mass up that you've lost, just putting that back is going to have such a positive effect on your health and all your markers like blood sugar and so on. As you're losing muscle mass, you're losing the ability to process sugars as well.
He's right about that. I mean, muscle, if you want to think about it this way, is basically like a sponge metabolically. It's very active tissue. It just always needs to be fueled. So this is why you can see bodybuilders get away with eating 700, 800, 900 grams of carbs a day. The average person, if they did that, they're guaranteed to be fat as shit. And even a lot of bodybuilders who eat like that still will get fat and have trouble losing it, such as Mike Israetel. Okay, I'm done. And just in general, eating very large intakes of food on a regular basis, you essentially have 2 ways to offset that, or put it to use. One, you have a lot of muscle mass, because bodybuilders and even powerlifters, not really active. I mean, you lift weights and everything, but, you know, it's not very physically intense at the end of the day. But if you have a lot of muscle mass to feed all day, that'll do it. And then number 2, if you're leaner, you've got people that do like surfing and a lot of cardio-intensive sports, like runners and soccer, football, that type of stuff, maybe basketball players. So things like that, those are really the only ways you can get away with eating a lot of food. And, you know, depending on the foods that you eat, it can still impact you negatively. But overall, you are going to be able to process all of it and get through it if you have a lot of muscle mass and or are very physically active. If you're both of those things, you're essentially a blast furnace. If you want to learn more about diet in full, excruciating detail, check out my Body Composition Bible in-depth nutrition guide, linked down below. I cover a number of topics there with all kinds of articles and presentations and resources linked. It is far deeper than any standard advice you've ever gotten. I guarantee you that.
The most positive thing you can do for your health. We could argue cardio, but cardio would be second, easily in my mind, to having muscle mass.
I completely agree, and I think logically it makes only perfect sense. How I think about it is this. Cardio is almost like day trading. Like, you can expend the energy, and there's some benefits you can get from it too, absolutely. But you cannot just do cardio and then the effects are felt like metabolically for long times after. Muscle mass is like a Roth IRA or long-term investments, maybe like index funds on the stock market. You build muscle, simply just maintaining the muscle that you build cranks up your metabolism when you're doing absolutely nothing. And on top of that too, cardio does not build up like the joints and the tendons and the connective tissue anywhere like lifting does. I mean, you can injure yourself and injure those things lifting badly, of course, but even general cardio is going to become stressful on the joints most ways. Lifting is oftentimes going to be the remedy for that too. And if you run a lot and do a lot of cardio, and you're getting, like I mentioned earlier, like knee pain and things of that nature, guess what? You need to lift weights and build muscle to help that.
No good having great cardio if you've got no muscle mass and your immune system's in the toilet, you know?
Well, the definition of dying from old age is normally when someone falls over because they're weak, they break the hip, and then they die in hospital.
Yeah, weak bones, no muscle mass. There's a very high percentage of people over 65 that do not recover from that fall that breaks the hip. You know, it's a downward spiral from there.
For the typical person that gets to, say, their mid-60s or roughly like 70, I've been through this myself with family members. They have like 1 or 2 medical issues. They could die pretty quickly, especially when you take into account like the compounding of their lifestyle up to that point, the things they've eaten, all the alcohol they've drank, the lack of muscle mass, the lack of a lot of exercise even in general. And I've heard a lot of people even argue that humans are meant to live to around 100 or longer. That should be normal for us. But based on the lifestyles that we've adapted and the diets and everything, it's normal now to die long before that. And that's seen as standard, but it should not be.
Man, if you can't move around and you can't do the things you want to do and you can't pick up your grandson and you can't, you know, take a nice walk up the hills in the sun.
Ride your bike.
I mean, you know, ride your bike. Quality of life as you get older, that's what I'm thinking about now. I'm not thinking how, well, yeah, I like to look in a mirror and think, wow, it looks pretty okay, but that's not the point now. It's like, how am I going to be in 10 years' time? I'm going to be in my 70s. Am I still going to be able to do the things that I like to do?
I can only speak for myself here, man, but I will never be put in a nursing home or anything like that. Like, I would rather die than somebody have to, like, wheel me around and wipe my ass for me. I'll clock out before that, thanks. And that is that. So in general, I like listening to Dorian. He seems like a thoughtful person. He strikes me as pretty intelligent. And as we can even see here, right, I mean, he's aging much, much better than a lot of bodybuilders, like his own contemporaries and even the modern ones. So I think he's got things figured out to a good extent. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my training programs and the Body Composition Bible linked down below. Check out the SimPure Y9T reverse osmosis filter. Get your water taken care of. There's a lot of crap in it. Get it out. And if you want to get in direct contact with me to talk about your own training and eating, see the links down below as well. Fill out the coaching form or schedule a consultation. And I will catch you guys next time.